Hello everybody, so my name is Regina, and I'm really excited to be with you tonight, even though it's virtual, as one of the speakers for Lasallian Days Midwest. So thank you so much for having me, and I'm just really excited to share with you a little bit about what it's like being a Lasallian volunteer out here in Browning, Montana. Like I said, my name is Regina, and I'm from Sheboygan, Wisconsin, so just a little bit south of where you're sitting right now in this auditorium. And I am the third child of 8, so I have an older brother, an older sister, and then it's me, followed by 4 younger brothers and a little sister at the end. I have 2 lovely parents. I've been in Catholic education my entire life. I attended Holy Family Grade School in Sheboygan, and then I'm a 2014 alumni of Roncalli High School, so very excited to be back, even if it's just via a computer screen. And then this past May, I graduated from another Lasallian institution, St. Mary's University of Minnesota, where I studied life science education. And right now, I am currently in my first teaching position as a Lasallian volunteer out at De La Salle Blackfeet School in Browning, Montana. So just a quick kind of bio and overview of what really brought me out here as a Lasallian volunteer. You can see it's kind of a natural fit. I've been with the Lasallian Network ever since I was about 15 at Roncalli, and then following up at a Lasallian University, and then teaching being something very important. I felt very blessed to be associated with Lasallian education, so it was kind of a natural fit to go on and start out as a Lasallian volunteer. But there's more that really brought me out to Browning than just, making sense that way. I actually had my first interaction with De La Salle when I was on vacation with my family. We were going out to Glacier National Park, which is about 20 minutes outside of Browning, and we had stopped at Mass in this tiny, tiny little, touristy chapel that's only run in the summer months outside of Glacier National Park. And we were talking to some people at the parish, and they had given a little pamphlet about the school. So somewhere probably in Canada when we were driving in an RV, I picked up the pamphlet because I was really bored of just driving, and I read it, and there was something that just really resonated with me about this tiny community that just loved their students in such a visible way, just from the newsletter, congratulating, a student about making the cheer squad and going on to college, and just the connection and the love you could see in the pictures of this teacher that had her arms around her students. You could just tell they loved her back. So in that day, in that moment, I had this desire to teach and have a connection with students, and I'd never really had a desire that strongly since, but it was so much more than just teaching. It was very much tied into the place. And so when I went to St. Mary's, it was crazy connection. I decided that I wanted to do something over my spring break, so I would do an alternative spring break trip. And one of the 6 places that they went was to a tiny Lasallian Catholic school on the Blackfoot Reservation. And so I was like, this has to be the same school that I read about. So I signed up for the trip. Didn't get it my freshman year, but I was able to go my sophomore year, went to the school, and I just fell in love with the students in the community. Was able to lead the trip there my junior year, and so I applied for Lasallian Volunteers, hoping specifically that I could be back in this place, and the Lord works in mysterious ways, and here I am. So very excited. There's been a lot leading up to actually coming out here and being a teacher at the school, so I just feel very blessed to be able to be in this position. So I'll start answering some of the questions. I have a list of about 7 or 8 questions that I'll try not to take too much time with each of them to answer for you all tonight. So the first one that I have is describe the environment of the school, the students, and Browning as a town. So I'll start a little bit bigger. I'll start with Browning. So Browning is a town. It's about 3,000 people. It's beautiful location, about 15 minutes outside of Glacier National Park, so the mountains are stunning. Very small, pretty sparse. We've got 2 grocery stores and I think 4 restaurants, and that's about it. So if you want to go to Target or Walmart, it's a 2-hour drive to Kalispell or to Great Falls. So there's that, but I kind of like it. It's charming. It's fun. But Browning itself, it's the capital of the Blackfoot Reservation out here in Montana. And as a community, it deals with many struggles. The poverty rate is very high. at one time I heard about 70%. And the community struggles as a whole a lot with addictions to alcohol and drugs. Right now, there is a large meth problem, and about 50% of the children born at the Browning Hospital this year are meth babies. So it is a very real problem, and it's gained ground a lot in the past 10, 15 years. So that is something the community is working very hard to combat. So there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of brokenness that results from these addictions and just the hardship that people are facing every day. But I found that the community also rallies around each other and is very supportive. Everybody knows each other. And so the kind of closeness and familial aspect that is also present in such a small place is something that is really beautiful that I found as well, even just in these 2 months that I've been out here. The school environment, the school that I teach at, De La Salle Blackfeet School, it's a 4th through 8th grade school, and it serves about 75 kids we have enrolled now. So 8th grade is our largest class of 20, and that is the cap. And 4th grade is our smallest with 12 students. So students come not just from Browning, but since it's kind of spread out over the reservation, all sorts of places. So we have some students that come from maybe 20 minutes away in Star School, which is a tiny little outcropping. Some ranching families, some live in town. Kind of a hodgepodge. In some way, at schools, all the students are the same. Sometimes they just drive you nuts, but they're absolutely wonderful. But the students do have a little bit of a different background because of the challenges that they face every day on the reservation. Lots of students are raised by grandparents or aunts and uncles because they have parents that are lost to addiction. There are strong kind of familial ties that extend beyond just your unit family. So having that bond with cousins and aunts and uncles and grandparents, and having a lot of families at school, lots of cousins, students that are related. Sometimes those struggles do, though, manifest themselves in different ways in the classroom, for better or worse. So about 75 students, like I said, 4th through 8th. They're hoping to expand the school and to eventually one day make it K through 12, but we're just starting with small steps. And something that is unique about De La Salle Blackfeet School is that when it comes to Catholic schools on American Indian reservations, most of them have long storied pasts with different religious groups coming in and starting this school hundreds of years ago, and kind of a tainted past, and that is not the case with De La Salle. It is a fairly new school, just about 20 years old, started in early 2000, and it was the people of Browning, the people in town, that went over to the pastor at their local Catholic parish and asked for the school to be put into place. So we're still growing. We're hoping to be bigger and expand to eventually a high school, but it takes time and steps to get there. And almost none of the students pay tuition. We are funded very much on a volunteer teacher basis, like myself, that helps get the school through, as well as many generous donors. So very thankful for that as well. The next one says, describe an average day. So my day normally starts at 6 when I wake up, and I take about 5 or 10 minutes just for quiet prayer and reflection in the morning. And being a Lasallian volunteer, we live in community. So there's myself, there's another Lasallian volunteer, and there are 2 other volunteer teachers that live out with us. They are through the American Indian Catholic Schools Network at Notre Dame. And we have 2 lovely brothers, Brother Jal and Brother Jim, that also live with us in community. So we have 2 homes out at the mission that we live at, and it's about 20 minutes outside of town. And so I live in one of the houses with Brother Dale and Brother Jim and the other volunteers, and the principal live in the other house. So we all kind of rally up at 7, and the 4 volunteers, we all drive into school together, which is very fun. We have great conversations in the morning. It's a wonderful way to start the day. And students start coming to school about 7:30. So the school day begins at 8:15, but we serve breakfast to all of our students if they wish to have it. And also basketball is huge on the reservation. So normally we have about 45 minutes of basketball time before school starts, where students are funneling in, just kind of easing into the day. And then at 8:15, we start with morning salutation, which is morning prayer led by the students. And we also do a Blackfeet word of the day, trying to strengthen their heritage and their connection to their culture. As well as with the Pledge of Allegiance, we also do a morning, I guess you could call it a pledge, where we stand and look at the Blackfeet flag and we listen to one of their traditional songs. After that, classes get underway. So for myself, with my students, I'm also one of the 6th grade homeroom teachers. So we have homeroom for the first couple minutes, and then I bring the 6th graders over to the science lab, and I'll teach them. And then I have 5th grade, 4th, 8th, and 7th. So the school day ends around 3:15 with classes, but we continue on until 4:30. That is the time the students are released. So after all the academic classes are done for the day, the students have 15 minutes of silent reading in homeroom, and then we do about 30 minutes of assignment completion, kind of a study hall where students can talk to different teachers, get a lot of their homework done, because it's really jeopardy. We never know if they're going to get it done at home or not, because the environments at home can be very unstable. So we try to provide resources that allow them to excel within the school day. After the assignment completion is done, we have another half hour or so of what is called enrichment. So enrichment is a time where the teachers have different kind of electives that wouldn't normally be incorporated within the school day, but is a fun, unique kind of thing for students to learn. So right now I am teaching an outdoor hiking and survival enrichment. So it's very fun. We've done knot tying. We built a solar oven and tried to cook s'mores. Just different things that would be fun to do and kind of give them a new perspective, something that wouldn't normally fit into the curriculum. And so part of the reason that our school day is so long, it follows the San Miguel model, which maybe some of you are familiar with, is because it is a little rough around Browning, and we don't want the young, vulnerable students to be exposed to drugs, alcohol, other things that could be very susceptible to, especially between those hours when they're home from school, but their parents might not be home, or a guardian might not be there to watch them because they're still at work. That's part of the reason we have the extended school day. After school is over, I also somehow wound up being the middle school cross-country coach, which I was really nervous about and didn't want to do at all at the beginning. I ran cross-country at Roncalli, but I was mediocre at best, but it's something that I've absolutely fallen in love with. So I coach cross-country from about 4:30 until 5:45 at night. Then I clean stuff up at the lab, and we all head home in our lovely minivan, and we take turns living in community, cooking meal. So we'll eat dinner together, and then after dinner we all pitch in cleaning up and end the day with a community prayer, which is really beautiful. And then I normally do some grading, try to catch up, make sure I have everything in order for the next day, go to bed, and we start all over again. So that's kind of what a day is like for me here as a Lasallian volunteer. The next question is, what do you want people to know about your students? So if I had to think of that, I was talking with Brother Jim the other day, and in some ways I want people to know that the kids here are like kids everywhere. They are lovable, they are wonderful, they make me smile and laugh more than I can even tell, and sometimes they frustrate me to no end. So in that way, kids are kids, and it's wonderful. They're amazing. The situation here on the reservation is definitely a little bit different because they're up against different things that you might not find everywhere else. Not only are there those really kind of obvious struggles of the community that I mentioned before, but also kind of trying to find the struggle of identity as well, being a Blackfeet member and being in modern America and trying to find where your identity lies, trying to figure out how you can meld your culture with the Catholic faith. All of these different things that are kind of two seemingly different things, and bringing them together is something that I'm sure maybe the students aren't even aware of, but you can see in small nuanced ways are affecting them as well. But overall, I'm impressed every day with my students' resilience. I'm impressed every day with the random small things that they do to show love to me and to others. And they are just absolutely amazing, and I'm totally in love with the students, and they are wonderful. So I want people to know that that everywhere kids have hope and they have big dreams, and they love basketball here. So basketball is king. So lots of people dreaming of being NBA players, but very sweet bunch of students. And so I'd want everybody to know that they are tough, they are fighters, they are fun, and they are fantastic, if I could sum it up. The next one, what are some challenges that you face? This is my first year full-time teaching. I did student teach last year, but teaching is a joy, but it can be a struggle. So finding patience when you had a bad class before and not letting that transfer over to the next one is something that sometimes is very difficult. Trying to step back and recognize that the reason that students are acting out isn't necessarily for something that I've done, that it's something deeper, something that maybe is happening at home, maybe something that happened last period, and trying to kind of sort that out and figure out what you can do to really help them in that moment can be very challenging, especially trying to figure out how to balance that and also serve the needs of the rest of the class. Is something, just as a first-time educator, that the learning curve is steep, but I like to think every day talking it out with other teachers and trying to figure things out is slowly getting a little bit better each day, baby steps, but we're getting there. Other challenges, random, but it's very isolated out here, and while being 2 hours away from a Walmart really doesn't bother me that much, the lack of cell reception sometimes does, because out where we live, we do not have cell reception. So if I want to make a call, I have to be in town. But when I'm in town, I'm normally occupied with coaching or teaching or something of that nature. So finding the time just to maintain the relationships and the wonderful things, calling home, calling friends, things like that, something as simple as that can sometimes be a struggle. So just getting used to that and, maintaining those relationships in a different way. Letter writing has become a big friend of mine, so that's been good. And then also just a challenge is seeing what some of these students have to go through and trying to just marveling at all that they go through every day and that they still show up, and just trying to sort out in the limited time that I have with them, like, how can I serve them the best? How can I love them in a way that will serve them as they go on in their lives? Because I believe that in my role as an educator, I'm doing much more than just imparting science to them. I want them to leave, yes, knowing about the xylem and phloem in a plant. We're doing that with 5th grade right now. But I also want them to know that they have the power within them to be amazing students, that they can be in charge of their actions and they can help others, because I've really seen them look out for each other, and having those more formational experiences that will carry with them no matter what they do or where they go in life is something that I have as a goal that I'm finding is much more complicated and nuanced, trying to fit that in the everyday as well. So those are some of the challenges that I'm dealing with right now. The next question is, how is Lasallian education different? So I really like this question because I feel extraordinarily blessed being able to go through Lasallian education for 8 years, but then also being an education major at a Lasallian university. I just was so in love with it the more that I found out more, specifically for the challenges that I just mentioned, because I think it's through having Lasallian education that I really came to realize that education is so much more than just academics, and it's really, how do you learn to love others? If I could summarize what I've learned from Lasallian education, it's that education is the profession of learning how to love another and how to propel and want the ultimate good for another as far as you can attain it for them, and that they can attain it for themselves. So just having the whole child at the heart of education, knowing it's so much more than a curriculum, knowing that you are helping to form a person who will be going into the world and is already doing great things and learning from others, and just really remembering that you are always in the holy presence of God is something that's been really important, because I find Christ every single day in my students, and then trying to heighten that awareness so they can find that for themselves, so they can have strength as they go on in their lives, is something really important. So, of course, you don't have to be at a Lasallian education center or institution to be a Lasallian educator, to have these charisms of care and remembering that you are always in the presence of God and willing the good of another. But I just found that is such a beautiful thing, and especially in education, so incredibly necessary. And so to have these charisms at the heart of it is just so important and so amazing. So I really am just blessed beyond belief to be exposed to that and to have that afforded to myself, and now be at an institution where I can see that in my students and hopefully try to spur on that same love as well is really awesome. All right, we're almost there. So the last question: what are my plans as a Lasallian for the future? So it's a big question. I'm not exactly sure yet. So Lasallian Volunteers is a 1-year commitment, and you can renew it for a 2nd year. So I've definitely already, the kids have kind of captured my heart. I'm thinking about coming back and doing this a 2nd year in Browning. And as I go on, I'm not necessarily sure where life will take me. I don't know if it'll be to a different teaching position. I don't know if it will be to continuing education. That's something I'm still trying to discern and pray about. So we'll see where it takes me, but I do know that I would love to continue to pursue the Lasallian values and just everything that being Lasallian encompasses. That's something I hope to grow in throughout my entire life, and hopefully spread that charism and spirit wherever I go and find it in others. Is something that I hope to do. So I know there are many avenues that this can be done, whether it is in the classroom teaching, whether it's just interacting with others in that spirit of St. John Baptist de La Salle, or if it is in something more obvious and concrete, like being a member of Young Lasallians. Those are some things that personally I would like to keep doing and pursuing myself. So absolutely wonderful to be with you tonight. I'm so glad to have been a part of the Lasallian Network and to keep on going with that. Thank you for your time and for listening to me babble on for 20 minutes or so. But like I said, I really appreciate that all of you are here and that you're so excited and passionate about the Lasallian charism and the wonderful legacy that St. John Baptist de La Salle left behind. And thank you for your investment in Lasallian education, because just from these month that I've been in school here as an educator, every day I'm astounded by how beautiful it is. So thank you for sharing that beauty and for investing in it. And I hope you all have a wonderful night. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. Thank you.